Let's jump over to Chicago, who I believe is on the cusp of moving towards a full rebuild. Now, if you look at what they netted for Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond, and DeMar DeRozan versus what they could have got just a few months ago at the trade deadline, had they done these moves when we were all screaming that they needed to do these moves, well, that's just depressing for Bulls fans. But nonetheless, at least they are starting to, it appears, move in a new direction here. So there were some rumblings that the Bulls could attach a first round pick to incentivize the team to take Zach LaVine. Seems like that was maybe a little bit overzealous, but now reports coming out that they could actually attach second rounders to Zach LaVine. Let me ask you this, though, Keith. Is that enough? If you're a team that was not interested in Zach LaVine previously, if you suddenly hear, well, we'll add in some second round picks, is that enough to make you go, well, you know what? Maybe we do want Zach LaVine after all.
No, because if I could take him in, at this point, I would just take him.
Yeah.
Right. Second round picks aren't going to move me at all. If I'm trading for Zach LaVine at this point, I either need to be paid in real assets. So you're going to pay me in real picks to do it. Or, yeah, there's not even like a really good young player that I would say throw him in the deal there. Not
that's realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it becomes, all right, you either pay me in a pick, or probably more likely a minimum of 2 first round picks and like real first round picks to do this, because you're talking 40 million at least the next 2 years, and then he's still got that player option, so you could be on the hook for a long time with this one. Or I'm trading for him because I like Zach LaVine and I think he can actually help. Now, of course, I'm not turning down 2 seconds if they want to give me that. If I'm in the latter camp, sure, like let's go that direction. But yeah, I don't know that anybody is saying just give me just give me 2 seconds and I'll take them off your hands. Because really at that point, who are we talking about? Utah, maybe
right.
Detroit. That shouldn't be enough to move them, not for how much that would put on your books moving forward. Like you would have to be at this point interested in Zach LaVine as a player.
It's not just the dollars, it's the years. It's how long the contract goes for. That player option at the end is a killer too. And again, he's not a bad player. You know, if this was a $25 million deal, we'd be talking about how good of a contract this could be. And, you know, he comes back. Like, there would be teams interested if he was a $25 million player or whatever. Like, teams would take that gamble. But at the contract that he's at right now, it's just tough. I do think it would benefit the Bulls to move on from him if they do decide that this is the path they're going to go down. But they also have to be careful if they're going to go into a rebuild, not to sacrifice too many of their own future assets, because that's how you're going to get out of a rebuild, is by using those picks. So I'm not sure. It may wind up being in the Bulls' best interest just to say, you know what, let's just ride this out another year. It is what it is. We'll see if maybe he can rehab some value by the trade deadline. And if not, next summer, at least then there's only 2 years left on the deal. And then maybe we'll find a suitor for him. That may be the best case scenario. Even if both Chicago and Zach LaVine look at each other and say, you know what, this has run its course. We need to end this here. Let's move on. They may actually be stuck together this season.
I'm going to go one step further than that and make a prediction.
Uh-oh.
I think Nikola Vucevic gets moved before Zach LaVine does.
Ooh.
Just say it's a little easier to move. It's half the contract size, and he expires a year earlier. There'll be somebody who will say, all right, I need a center bad enough to let's grab Vooch and we'll figure it out. And if nothing else, he's turning into an expiring contract, and we're out of it in one more season beyond this one anyway. So that's just looking at kind of the landscape of where things are at. That's where I think we could see this go.
As long as teams don't pay any attention to what Vucevic has done in international play, then maybe they will still be interested. Gosh, I'm worried about that. He's 34.
Yeah, I'm afraid he's dropped off he might have dropped off the cliff. I mean, this could be it, right? And it's tough because he was really good for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, a really long time. I mean, a lot of it was spent in Orlando where no one noticed because it was like, but then he made a couple all-star teams and they were deserved all-star nods. Like, he played really well for those teams, but yeah, just been rough since then. So yeah, I don't know. And as you look around too, it's really hard to find like a Zach LaVine trade. It's really hard to find a Brandon Ingram trade.
Yeah, that too.
He's on an expiring contract that makes less money. So it should be far easier. It's just hard to find the right match of fit for Ingram plus return for the Pelicans. Like it's just,
Right.
it's just not jumping off the page. And we're going to get 100 comments now of people being like, oh, it should just be this. And it's like, yeah, but why does that work for New Orleans? Right. Like that's where some of those end up breaking down.
Well, and you're right, because everybody likes to fire up the trade machine and
Sure.
and it's fun. There's no question. It's fun. It's part of the joy of the NBA offseason. But with Brandon Ingram, the challenge is you got to give him that next contract, right? And so that's where you're looking at the Zach LaVine situation, and you're saying, well, like, how dangerous is this? How could Brandon Ingram become the next Zach LaVine contract, right? Given his injury history and all of that. And so you're looking at Zach LaVine, if you're in the Brandon Ingram market, as a cautionary tale. So you have to be really careful there. And that's the piece that, maybe there's been reporting in New Orleans that I missed or something, but I don't know what Ingram is expecting on his next contract. So that's the challenge too. If he's like, for example, if I'm whatever team, and I'm interested in trading for Brandon Ingram, and he's expecting a max deal on his next contract, I'm out. Like, I'm not, then I'm not making the trade there. So what does he want? If he wants a Jeremy Grant style trade, okay, style contract, I'm a bit more interested at that point, right? So what he wants on that next contract, in addition to, you got to get the Pelicans what they want. This team has to be getting the pieces they want and sending out the pieces they want. That's what makes this all so complicated.
Yeah, so I just pulled it up because I knew there was something out there. Was Will Guillory of The Athletic, who covers the Pelicans, said the Atlanta Hawks weren't interested in acquiring Ingram, where they could have maybe put in like a Clint Capella and expanded that trade and made it bigger, but the Hawks weren't interested. And then it said basically the Hawks let it be known they weren't interested in giving him a 4-year, $200 million max extension. And Ingram is that sounds like that's probably where he was starting at, which that's always where you start at, right?
Sure.
One side starts at the max, the other side says no. But that's the issue. I think for New Orleans specifically, you've got a lot of money tied up now and a lot of guys go over at least the next couple of seasons. You have to be very careful. And with Ingram, your issue is, let's say Zion can't ever figure it out. He can't ever play more than like 55, 60 games. That 60 you'd probably be fine with. Let's more say 55 and he's not healthy come playoff time again. Well, you can't have Ingram, who's in the same exact boat, right? And constantly missing, 30, 40 games a year. And then question is, he'll be healthy, because now all you've done is you've locked into, we're probably pretty good when everybody plays, but then when we have guys out, we stink. And that's just not where they want to be. So you got to be very, very cautious with that. I would say this is why, because I had some people say, why are people so willing to throw all this at Lauri Markkanen? Well, he's generally pretty durable. Like the time he even missed last year was more the Jazz saying, we don't want to win any more games. Like,
no, thank you.
Hurts too bad to play. Yeah, right. Go sit down. So I think
Danny Ainge is walking past Markkanen and he like bumps him into a wall or something like that. Like, hey, now if your shoulder didn't hurt, well, now it does. Sit down.
Kenny Lofton, when you do your pregame chest bump, put a little extra in it. Really knock them for a loop on one. Right? Yeah.
Okay, this is totally off the rails here, but do you see how dramatic Studio Stu looks in the background there in the light?
Love it. I like the shadow too. There's like a little Halloween
right? He's taking it to a new level here.
It's funny. It's like he's like, I can't find a sunny spot, so I'm gonna hang out here in the light.
It's like I'm a watchful protector.
There it is. There it is. He's your night protector.
There it is.
Yep. It on lock. But yeah, I mean, Markkanen is just a more valuable player, right? Than Ingram is at this point, because I also think he's far more plug and play than Brandon Ingram is, because Markkanen's a guy who, if you brought him in and he needed to be your second guy, I think that's far easier than maybe Ingram being a second guy. I think Ingram's a little more ball dominant. I think it's going to be very, very interesting if something doesn't resolve in New Orleans. They just have too many guys now, and they still don't have a center. So unless they're going to commit to playing super duper small a lot or even all the time, I don't know how they're going to get everybody on the floor, because you have Zion, Ingram, Herb Jones, who he has to play because he's one of the best defenders in the league, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, and Trey Murphy. Like that's 6 dudes who all need to play and play a lot. And that's before you even put a center in there, put in any kind of backup guard in the mix. It sounds great to have that until somebody's like, hey, I'm not cool with my 25 minutes a night. I want to play more. That's where it could all go a little sideways.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch for the Pelicans. See how this, does Brandon Ingram wind up on a new team before the season? I mean, that we kind of have been expecting it, but now just the way the dynamic has played out and the fact that some of the teams that we would have maybe sent him to, when we look at, for example, Sacramento, they've made their moves, and so I don't know where this all goes with him at this point.
Meanwhile, you're gonna have 100 Laker fans being like, "Send him to the Lakers."
I went over that yesterday. I looked at all the ins and outs of what that deal could potentially look like, why it makes sense, why it doesn't make sense, all the things. Where that's the world we're living in right now, Keith.
Sure.
That's the world we're living in.
And it's like, is it the worst idea in the world? No. But what do you send it back to New Orleans? That makes it work for them. Like that's where that probably needs to be. Hey, Detroit or Utah, you have any interest in jumping in here to kind of help out a little bit? I don't know, mate. Could you send like Walker Kessler to New Orleans, and then the salaries go to Utah, and Ingram goes to like the Lakers? Like, sure, that could be workable, I guess, if you wanted to go that route. I mean, that could be a thing. Isaiah Stewart, somebody that's been mentioned maybe in the past, so maybe there's a path with like Detroit where they take on a salary or two. That could be a thing. So I don't want to rule it out completely. My thing with the Lakers is get somebody who's maybe gonna play more than 50 some odd games, just because otherwise, if that all goes wrong, now instead of being one of the 12 teams that's fighting for a playoff spot, you're starting to count ping pong balls that you don't even own.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks throw a party, they celebrate.
Yeah, exactly.